Okay, everybody see the rule 9, 3, and 5 screen? We got a yes. Fantastic. I got at
Yes,
least one
sir. I can see it.
Yes,
one
sir.
person I can actually see as well instead of staring into a face of names, but that's all good. So thanks for coming back for a second week of exciting rules presentations. Hopefully many of you have now gone through 1 or 2 weeks of on-court training and are starting to get a little bit of feel of what it's going to be like being on the floor. And we're going to kind of keep moving through at a reasonably rapid pace the rules. Normally at the start of the second, third, and fourth sessions, we do review of the quizzes. But I have to say that I was pretty disappointed in the number of people that have actually been able to finish the quizzes. And I don't know if I'm preaching to the choir here and the folks who aren't here didn't get them done or what, but because I don't really have the names in front of me right now. But, I think rule 1, we had a decent number of people kind of finishing it, something like 8 or so, but rule 2 and rule 4 was more like 3 or 4. So I'm going to delay kind of reviewing those quizzes until next week. Hopefully you all, if you haven't had a chance to get to those rules quizzes, please do so. And again, it's not so much that you get the answers right. You're brand spanking new and you've barely broken the binder on the rule book, but it's just to kind of get your brain thinking about the rules and give it a crack in terms of what you think is right instinctively, maybe even as much, or you could always do something crazy and look in the rule book. But and then we can talk about some of the things that were giving you more issues than not. So we'll plan on doing that next week. We'll get to that point. So with that, actually, I got to skip through a couple of these things because I
have a question really quick. Do we have more than one quiz?
You have 3.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm sorry.
Quiz 1, quiz for rule 1, rule 2, and rule 4.
Okay.
So, and this week you'll also have a similar number of quizzes for rule 9 and 3 and 5. All right, so rule 9. So when last week when Mike and I were talking, we kind of said, in order of importance, the rule 4 is probably the most important rule. Rule 9, which talks about violation, rule 4 being definitions, rule 9, which talks about violations, and then rule 10, which talks about fouls and penalties for fouls, are probably the 3 most important rules in the rule book. And the rest of the things kind of flow from them, which is why we're trying to spend a little bit more time on those particular rules. So we'll start with rule 9. And again, this is just kind of like we're not going through every single rule in rule 9, but I'm trying to hit the highlights in terms of things that you might want to know about. So there's a bunch of things in 9.1 that talk about free throws. And it's something that you'll do a lot of in your games. And pretty quickly, it'll become second nature to you because there's plenty of fouls in every game. There's plenty of free throws in every game. And after you get out on the court and you work a few of these things, a lot of these rules and procedures will become secondhand to you, but there'll be certain things that might happen that you might want to know what the rule is. So, ball is placed at the disposal of the free thrower. So, the referee who's on the end line bounces the ball to the free thrower. It's at the disposal of the free thrower when the free thrower then has control of it. It might also be put at the disposal of the free thrower by putting it down on the foul line, but I would say that happens in very rare circumstances. So after the free thrower's got the ball in his or her hand, they got 10 seconds to shoot. And we all used to say, 10 seconds, nobody ever, reaches that level. And then Giannis decided to kind of show us differently in the playoffs last year with the Bucks. I actually just saw a video of a high school game where they called the violation on the 10 seconds. So they got 10 seconds to shoot. Hopefully you won't find too often where they don't get it up within that 10-second time period. So there's no faking to cause an opponent to violate. and that's either by the free throw shooter or by anybody along the lane line. No distracting the free thrower by waving your arms, noises, coughing, whatever. They used to use the word disconcertion, and probably not enough people understood what the word meant, so they took it out. But they now just talk about no distraction of the free thrower, which again seems like common sense. And the thrower can't have the foot break the vertical plane of the free throw line until it touches the ring, or the throw touches the ring, or the free throw ends. So as opposed to, we're about to say, the feet of the player not on the lane lines can't break the vertical plane of the free throw line or the 3-point line until the ball touches the rim, or the free throw ends as well. So the shooter and those outside of the free throw lane line can't go in for a rebound, break the free throw line for the shooter, break the 3-point line for those outside the lane line until the ball hits the rim, or until the free throw ends, which is kind of like if you know that it's not going to be a good basket. And then the feet of the players on the lane line can't break the plane until the ball is released. Okay, so along the lane line, you can start getting in for reboundings once the ball is released by the free thrower. Outside the lane line and the free thrower themselves need to wait until the ball has touched the rim.
Quick question. Are you using ring and rim interchangeably?
Yeah, well, technically the word in the rule book is ring.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay.
Interesting. I did write rim here. I tried to write the rule book language, but I guess I missed it on that one. So yeah, they're both the one and the same.
Okay.
And then the players can't enter the semicircle until the ball touches the ring or the free throw ends. So that person who's kind of in the third spot, oftentimes they're saying, box out the free throw shooter, box out the free throw shooter. And you're not allowed to break through that line, the free throw line, until the ball has hit the rim. So you can't, box out the shooter by touching them, hitting them until the ball has hit the rim or the ring. Okay, so what are the penalties? So if the first violation is by the thrower or a teammate of the thrower, the ball is dead and no points can be scored. Okay, so the shooter is a violation, or one of his teammates or her teammates violates, the ball's dead, you don't score any points. If the violation is only by an opponent by the free throw of the thrower, then you have a delayed dealt ball. So the first lane space goes in too early, the free throw is made, score the point, ignore the violation, because you can't do anything better than scoring the point. If the try is not good, you give them a substitute free throw. All that makes common sense and pretty easy, I hope. Simultaneous violations by both teams. One player from both teams goes in too early into the lane. Ball's dead and no points can be scored. If no more free throws, the ball's awarded by the AP arrow, because once the ball's up in the air, there's no control. So you have to, in order to give it to one team or the other, you have to go to the AP arrow in order to do that. And then if there's a second free throw, you haven't lost the opportunity to get that second free throw. It's just the first free throw is no longer good. So essentially, if the free throw shooting team violates, they can't score points, regardless of whether the other team violates or not. If the violation is first by the opponent of the thrower and then by the thrower or the teammate, if both offenders are in the lane spaces, the second one's ignored, because the idea is that the first violation made the first person made this player made the second player violate. If the second violation is by the thrower or the teammate not in the lane space, you penalize the same way as a simultaneous violation. So the defensive player goes into the lane line too soon, and the offensive player that's outside above the free throw 3-point circle comes in too soon. It's a double violation, and it's the same thing as a simultaneous violation. Or where you might see it is the free throw, is the person goes in too soon, the player goes in too soon in the lane, and then the shooter of the free throw throws up an air ball. That's a double violation as well. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to do the same thing I did last week. I think we're going to do the videos right at the end as opposed to trying to do it along the way here. Might flow a little bit better. All right, so rule 9.2, which is throw-ins. Thrower can't leave a designated spot before releasing the ball, right? And we learned what the designated spot was, and you'll learn more when you're doing this live. You know, it's a 3 foot wide space that has no limitation on the depth. You can go back as far as you want. You can only go forward to the line, the boundary line, and you have to have 1 foot on or over the 3 foot space. Okay. The ball must be touched inbounds or out of bounds before going out of bounds untouched in order for the throw in to end. So the ball needs to be thrown into the court and touched, or if it's thrown out of bounds and caught by somebody like standing on the out of bounds line, that's considered the end of the throw in. It needs to be released before 5 seconds has elapsed. So the key word there is released. So as you're counting 5 seconds along the way, and the ball is thrown down the floor and the ball's up in the air, when you get to 5 seconds, it's not a violation. It's when it is being released from the thrower's hands. Thrower can't carry the ball onto the court. That seems fairly obvious. And the thrower can't be the first to touch the thrown ball when it's inbounds. So they can't throw it to themselves inbounds. It needs to go and touch somebody else first. And then the thrower can't be changed once the ball is at the thrower's disposal, except for after a made basket. After a made basket, the thrower is able to run along the end line. You're able to pass it between teammates on the outside of the boundary line. But if the ball has been given to the thrower and the referee has started their count, the thrower can't be changed. Ball can't go in the basket or lodge between the rings and the backboard before being touched by a player. So if the throw-in goes in the basket, that seems obvious that that's not going to count. If the throw-in gets lodged in the ring, it's not an AP arrow held ball. It's a throw-in violation, and the other team gets it without the AP arrow being changed. And then the thrower, the opponent of the thrower, can't break the boundary plane until the ball has been released. So they can't have their hands through to the other side of the boundary plane until the ball has been released. No teammate or thrower shall be out of bounds once the throw-in begins.
Can we go over the second, sorry.
Good.
The second talking point, I don't think I understand that one. Ball must be touched inbounds. What, can you give an example of that?
It's basically a throw. So if you're throwing the ball and you try to throw a home run ball and you throw it all the way down the floor,
Okay.
and the ball goes out of bounds down the other end of the floor.
Okay.
It's a throw-in violation, and the ball would be put in play where the throw had started. So the other team would get the ball, as opposed to going all the way down the end of the floor and giving them the ball down there. That's not what the violation happened. The violation happened at the throw-in spot. So you put it in at the throw-in spot.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the whole detail there. All right, throw-in rule penalties. If the violation is by the throw-in team, dead ball in all cases, the opponent's awarded the ball, this is what we just talked about, at the same spot as the original throw-in. If the violation of the boundary line plane by the opponent, so the opponent reaches through and violates the boundary line, the first violation is the delay of game warning, assuming no other warning has been given before the game. And then any subsequent violations is a team technical foul, not a player technical foul. A detail, you'll forget it in your first year, no doubt about it. But if you have to give a technical for delay of game violations, the technical is charged to the team and not to the player who caused that second violation to happen. which might be important to the player in terms of, because it doesn't count against his individual foul count. So if an opponent contacts the ball being held by a thrower out of bounds, and this actually goes to something more significant than a violation penalty, it's a technical foul. So reach through the plane, slap the ball, it's a technical foul. If that same opponent, instead of slapping the ball, contacts the thrower, it's an intentional foul. And I have to tell you, because they're different, you'll stand out there and you'll see it every now and then, and the thrower will get hit and you'll be like, oh, is that a technical or an intentional foul? There's not much difference between the two, other than in a technical foul, anybody can shoot the free throw, and the ball gets brought in play at the division line at half court opposite the table. And in an intentional foul, the player who gets fouled shoots the free throws, 2 free throws, and the ball gets put back in play at the spot of the foul. So that would be the difference there. All right. Backcourt. Over and back. Well, you hear this all the time as you're out refereeing. So when there's team control in the front court, and team control happens when either there's player control where the player is dribbling or holding the live ball, or when the ball is being passed between teammates, or when the ball's loose and on the floor and is not yet in control of the other team. So when there's team control in the front court, the player from that team can't be the first to touch the ball in the backcourt if they were the last to touch the ball in the front court. Last to touch, first to touch. And that's the thing that just kind of needs to be going through your head in order to determine whether or not there's a backcourt violation. And we'll show some clips on this. If the ball's tipped by the defender standing in the front court and is first touched by a player in team control in the backcourt, no violation occurred. So 2 offensive players are passing the ball out near the division line. The defender kind of reaches out, taps the ball. There's another player and it goes into the backcourt. There's another player standing in the backcourt and catches the ball. There's no violation there because the defender was the last to touch in the front court and the offensive player was the first to touch in the backcourt. On a ball thrown from backcourt to front court, which returns to the backcourt without touching a player in the front court, it can't be touched by the team in control. So the ball gains front court status when it hits the court. It hasn't been touched by a different team. And if it ends up back in the backcourt, which doesn't happen all that often, but might, for instance, by hitting a referee, it can't be touched by the team that's in control. And then during a jump ball, a throw in, or if on defense, a player can jump from the front court. What did I just do? Catch the ball in the air and return to the floor with one of both feet in the backcourt. And it doesn't matter which foot hits first. So it's kind of a throw in exception. It's probably something that you don't need to spend a whole lot of time focusing on your first year, but like on a throw in on the sideline, if you jump up and you catch the ball in the air coming from the front court and you land with 1 foot in the front court, 1 foot in the back court, it's not a throw-in violation. Clear as mud?
Yes, sir.
We'll keep going. Closely guarded. While in the front court, player can't hold the ball or dribble the ball for 5 seconds. So anybody want to know why it's not the case in the back court?
Yes.
Why?
It's 10 seconds in the backcourt to get the ball.
Excellent. Right. So the player is being closely guarded in the back court. Holding the ball for 5 seconds doesn't get you a violation because they've got 10 seconds to get the ball across. So there's not a double whammy there. You can't have both a 5-second count and a 10-second count going on. So this is a front court issue. It used to be they had different rules for the girls and the boys, but they've now made the rules all the same. So that's great. So they can't hold the ball or dribble the ball for 5 seconds. So this means that a player can legally hold the ball for just under 5 seconds, start, Pat gets a pass, catches it, it's closely guarded. And they can hold the ball for close to 5 seconds. Then they could dribble the ball for close to 5 seconds. And then they could pick up the ball and they could hold the ball for another 5 seconds. So you could get yourself to a point where they have control of the ball for 15 seconds without violating if they did it in that kind of order, right? Just talked about no 5 second count in the background, no 5 second count during an interrupted dribble. So once the ball rolls on the floor, the ball's been knocked away, you no longer have a 5 second count. One of the things that I didn't include in this rule is the definition of closely guarded, which I need to kind of put in here. So closely guarded means, and I think we might have talked about this last week, you're within 6 feet of the ball handler, dribbler, and you are actively playing defense. And that 6 feet is measured from front foot to front foot. And I think I said something, if to visualize what 6 feet is, it's the distance between the free throw line and the circle, the back of the circle. That's a 6 foot distance. Any questions there? We've just blown through Rule 9, but we're going to go do some video clips.
I have a question. So was there ever a rule? Could you ever establish a defensive defensive 5 second count with the hand? Or has the rule all?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So you just said that guarding a 5 second defensive call is established by foot to foot. Right. Okay. Was there ever a rule where you can extend your hand and that be a substitute for 6 feet or no?
Not in the 15 years that I've been doing it.
Okay.
So whether it was previous to that, I couldn't tell you, but.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, let's see how my VLC is working today. Hopefully better. Oh, well, actually, hang on 1 second. I need to turn on that. I want to share sound, optimize for video clips. VLC. All right, so we've got a couple of free throw violations here. And this is like an international rule, but anybody see what happened first? We'll play it again. Watch the player above the free throw circle. All right, so he's violating right there, right?
Okay. Defensively or offensively?
So that was defensively.
He had his foot on the 3-point line.
He was inside the 3-point line. Oh, so here comes. Hang on, stop.
Well, he left early too, didn't they? Didn't they all leave kind of early?
So here's a violation with the defensive player violating. Ball goes in, right? So no penalty. And here we have, what's the outside person again? So there's the outside person violating the free throw, the 3-point line. We get another shot. Now that ended up being called by the trail official. You can see his hand up in the air at the bottom of the picture. It's actually, that is exactly what the trail official is supposed to be looking at there. They're supposed to be looking at violations from the outside shooters. That's their responsibility. Does anybody want to go back and see any of those clips again? Does everybody kind of understand the concepts there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the call is just free throw violation, number 34, repeat the shot, or how do you?
Yeah,
word that?
and you don't end up needing to report that to the table.
Okay,
Because it doesn't matter what the number is. I mean, you can tell people that you can inform the coach of who did the violation.
Okay.
But essentially it's like a tweet, you have an open hand because you're stopping the clock or you're stopping play with an open hand. It's not a foul. And then you're basically saying, violation white came into the line, it came in too early. We're going to shoot another free throw.
okay.
In the second video, the hand up, they had the call and then he made the basket.
Yeah, again, that I think was an international clip. So the signal for delayed dead ball is your arm is out parallel to the ground and you're just holding it out parallel to the ground. And then if the ball goes in, you just drop it because there's nothing to do. And if the ball doesn't go in, you're raising your hand and you're calling the violation. Sound good?
26.
So these are throw-in plays. Let me get that back to the start.
26.
Backcourt or not?
No,
Yep. No,
Yes.
that's a backcourt.
I say no because she didn't have control.
She touched it though.
But she touched it. Yeah. I think it's a violation.
All right, we've got a couple of violations and we've got one no because there was no control.
Small or high school already.
I don't think so. It's still a loose
Still
ball. She just didn't establish
I think there's
control.
only
I didn't quite get that because it was a little static. Can you just repeat yourself there?
I don't think they established control. I think it was still a loose ball. So I think it's not a backcourt.
Yeah.
Okay. I think what I heard there was there was no control, and that is the rule. So on a throw in, there needs to be team control in the front court. And the only way you're going to get team control in the front court is you're going to have player control in the front court. There's plenty of players who don't know this rule, right? So the ball gets tipped in the front court. It goes into the back court. It is not a backcourt violation because there was no team control in the front court. I just had a coach, was that last night or 2 nights ago? I forget anymore. Same question. He goes, wasn't her foot sitting on the line when she, got control of the ball? I was like, yeah, probably, but it's, she didn't have control in the front court. So it's not a backcourt violation. So. And you can see there that the players are kind of stopping looking at the referee because it's like,
Is this a
right or
backcourt?
not?
A player in white who was out of bounds for a throw-in passes the ball to teammate number 32 who muffs the pass in the front court. The ball goes into the backcourt, is recovered by white
And
number
everybody looks
32
at
who
him.
begins the
Like,
dribble.
"Oh, is that legal?"
This is a legal play since team control was not established in the front court. The official is correct in not ruling a backcourt violation.
Yeah, that's legal. Not good.
Doesn't look good. People in the stands, coaches on the sideline, everybody will be, backcourt. But know the rule. All right, it's kind of similar, just in a different location. So now this is a throw in at the offensive end of the floor. Backcourt or not?
No,
No,
A lot of good no's there.
I think no, but I was wrong last time. So
Okay, so what happened on that play was that the player had front court status. He jumped in the air, caught the ball while he was in the air, and he could have landed either in the back court or with 1 foot in the front court and then 1 foot in the back court, and that would not have been a violation, right? Because that's one of the rules on throw-ins.
What if he staggers when he lands and has the first foot lands in the front court and then his second foot lands in the back court? Would that be a back court?
No,
Okay.
That's part, it doesn't matter which foot lands first. So, and again, that will get people crazed because they'll see the foot come down in the front court. They'll see the second foot come down in the back court. And they'll be like, that's a over and back. But on a throw in, that's not the case. Now, just to give you one other nuance, which I'll be happy if you get this in year 2 or year 3. If say the ball's being thrown in like that, and the defender tips the ball, and then the guy jumps up and catches it and puts the first foot in the front court and the second foot in the back court, that's actually over and back because the defender touching the ball is when the throw-in ended.
Okay, so that's just on a throw-in, and then any other time that were to happen when the ball's in play, it would be a backcourt violation.
Right, if it was a pass from a teammate inbounds,
Yeah.
and that basically that player caught the ball with front court status because your status is where you last touched the floor.
Yeah.
So he jumped up in the air and he caught it with front court status and then landed in the back court. That would be over and back.
Is that something you're gonna call in a game? Are you being too good there?
No.
Are you gonna be ready to explain that to the coach?
Yeah, you may not be ready in your first year to explain it to the coach, but I'm hopeful at the end of the 15th year, you are able to explain it to the coach. Yes. Coach might not understand it, but that's another story.
Play 27.
Hang on. Let's put my screen for him.
Play 27.
Over and back or not?
I say no.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going
Over and
yes. I'm going yes.
Wait, can you play it over one more time?
Of course.
Is this a backcourt violation? 22 White gains control of the ball by dribbling it in the front court. His momentum takes him into the backcourt where the dribble continues. This is a backcourt violation.
So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, he establishes his feet in the front court and then steps in the back court, over and back.
I think it's a violation.
Here's one more time.
Yeah, let's.
So
Yeah, he
there's
established-
there's the player right there.
I don't
And
think
that-
I don't think he has control of the ball, honestly.
I do. He dribbled it, so I think that's backcourt.
Yeah, he switched from left to right. then-
Yeah.
I agree that it's very marginal as to whether he had control of the ball or not. And if you think that that was a, deliberate controlled dribble, as opposed to just continuing to kind of run down the ball to get control of it, then that's your ruling. And that's what they call judgment. And that's what we're out there for. And as long as that's what you're able to actually go through your head and you're like, yep, he got control. Yes, he was in the front court. Then he ended up in the back court. I'm calling the violation. That's great. If you're able to know the rule part of it, and then it's just the judgment part of, did he have control in the front court before he ended up going into the back court, right? And officials may differ on that call, and that's fine. But that's why we kind of keep on saying that to know the rule helps you with the ruling when you're able to kind of be out there on the floor and be able to kind of process that play.
Play 22.
What?
Is this a backcourt violation? A very difficult.
Mess this up again.
Number 3. Dribbles into the front court, then turns to pass to a teammate. Airborne player number 4 in blue receives the pass and lands in the front court. Is this a backcourt violation? You make the ruling.
Wait, you want to see it again?
I'm gonna go no.
You don't
Yeah, I'd like
think
to see
it's
it again.
backcourt because why?
She didn't have control of the ball.
Who didn't
But
have?
she left from
So-
the backcourt.
So we're
her
all,
feet-
we're in the front court now, okay?
Yeah, she didn't have control of the ball when her foot lifted up from the backcourt when she landed.
Well, her position is where her
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 last
feet were last at.
spot where her foot left from though was in the backcourt, so that should be a backcourt.
So she's still in the backcourt there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now she's in,
Now, is she in the front court?
She's in the air.
it doesn't matter.
No, wait, no, she is in the front court. Looks
Is
like
her
her
left
foot's
foot
in-
down?
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
like
her
it is.
left foot is down.
Down.
I think her left foot's down. I think her left foot is down in the front court.
I don't think that's a
It
violation.
looked kind of
Even
tricky,
if
but
she-
it worked. Yeah, I don't
Even
think
if
that's
she
a violation.
jumps from the backcourt, when she touches the ball, there's nothing touching the backcourt. So she's not in the backcourt.
That's my reasoning too.
If she jumps up into the air from the backcourt, catches the ball, and lands, when she catches the ball, she has backcourt status.
Yeah.
So the throw would come from the front court, and she catches the ball in the air, she's in the backcourt, and that's a violation. But the
Really?
question here is did she get her left foot down in the front court, which I think she did. And then that would make it not a backcourt violation. And these plays are tough because they happen fast in your games. They're just rolling along and you're saying, oh, this is going really well. And then something like this kind of falls in your lap and you're like, what do I do with that play?
So even if she's in the air
Number 3
over
in
the
blue, receive.
line. Oh,
Good.
she's got backcourt status, even though she's in the air and physically her body's in the front court. She still has backcourt.
She
status.
hasn't landed in the front court yet.
She hasn't landed in the front.
It's
court.
where you last were on the floor.
Okay.
That's where your
The
status
pass and
is.
dribbles into the front court, then turns to pass to a teammate.
Yeah, her left. Oh,
I think her left foot gets down.
Airborne player number 4 in blue receives the pass and lands in the front.
Because there's no way she gets up in the air like that without the left foot being down.
So it only matters, it's one foot. Both feet don't have to be down, just one.
She's right. She's getting, well, she, 1 foot, there can't be anything still in the backcourt. So the foot is down and the other one's up in the air. That's you've got front court status. If the left foot's in the front court and the back foot's up in the air, you have front court status.
Front court.
Okay.
Is this a backcourt violation?
You don't
make
need
the
both-
ruling.
both
Good
feet
play
as
for
front court.
discussion.
Correct. You just can't have one of them still hanging out in the back, still hanging.
Is it
So-
the same? Is that the same thing, reestablishing yourself after being out of bounds?
Yep,
You have 1 foot in, the other one's in the air, you're on the court.
correct.
Got it. Cool. It's a good example.
Play 20. Is this a legal play?
All right.
I've never seen it in my life.
Let's say yes,
Yes.
Why?
Watch it again.
because 2 feet have to
that's
be
what the
in the
rule
front
says.
court.
Is this a legal play?
When they caught the ball, did he have backcourt or front court status?
backcourt.
Backcourt.
I wasn't even looking at him. I was looking at the guy
I
dribbling
don't
the
know,
ball.
the
Gotta
dribble.
look at them both, right? So, all right, so now the guy dribbling the ball, was he in the backcourt or the front court?
I think he was still in the
Went from
backcourt because
backcourt to
both,
front to back.
Yeah.
He
think
kind
he
of
was
like
in
hopped and
backcourt.
skipped a little bit.
because 2 feet have to be in the front court in order
But
to
he never
establish front court
established,
status,
yeah.
right?
He
So
never
when you-
established.
When you're
front court.
dribbling the ball from front court, from backcourt to front court, the ball and both of your feet have to be in the front court to be considered to be in the front, for front court status to be established, okay? So the dribbler never got to the front court, which means it's kind of irrelevant whether the guy catching the ball was in the front court or the back court, because the ball never got into the front court in the first place.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, a lot of them can be tough.
Jeez. So
And
he
you only
never-
get one
Number 1
look at
blue
it.
dribbles into the front court with his right foot.
So
but
backcourt,
then steps with the left foot in backcourt as he ends his dribble. He then
backcourt.
passes to a teammate who was airborne from the backcourt and lands in the front court.
Yeah, so he never does it. Yeah, like you say, he never achieves front
Right.
court status.
So the fact that the guy catching the ball had backcourt status when he caught the ball because he was up in the air was not a big deal because the ball never was in the front court.
This is a challenging play for officials. Players who are dribbling gain front court status when both feet and the ball touch in the front court.
Ref's got a great view of it.
I know.
Got to be able to process it.
On this play, number 1 in blue never achieves front court status before passing to an airborne teammate who also has backcourt status. This is a legal play.
If that ref's 2 feet behind that, the coach is gonna be yelling at him.
The center
Makes it a
official
lot
in
harder.
good position recognizes that this is a closely guarded situation.
He actually counts to 6 as opposed to 5, but who's counting?
The official begins his count using his right arm. Let's count with him. It appears that he signals 6 times and then signals a 5-second violation.
You'll see how quick his count is.
Yeah.
He's probably pretty darn close to what a second is on that chop. And as you work games, you can either use the game clock or the shot clock. If you can glance up at it to start to understand what a second is as you're moving your arm along the way. A lot of us aren't great at it. You know, you'll especially see people coming up the floor and with their 10-second count as kind of like once every 2 seconds as opposed to once every 1 second. We now have shot clocks in high school where so you can kind of cheat and use the shot clock to know whether you've gotten to 10 seconds or not, but it's more important on the 5-second call. So it's something that you'll learn over time in terms of, you know, how fast do I need to be moving my arm in order to be having a 1-second count.
The stop the clock signal should be utilized, followed by the type of violation, and then indicate the throw-in spot.
All right, so those are the clips for Rule 9. So you're now Rule 9 experts. Well, you will be after you spend some time in the rule book and spend some time on the quizzes. Rule 3, players, substitutes, and equipment. We're going to roll through this pretty quickly. So highlights. A team must have 5 players to start the game, but can continue with less than 5 if there's no subs or if they don't have enough subs to play with 5. And you can actually play with 1 if there is a reasonable expectation that they could win the game. I've never seen it go down to 1. I don't think I've seen it go down below 4, but it is possible. So substitutions. Substitutes may enter the game for any dead ball once beckoned by the official, except during free throws when the subs come in before or after the last free throw is to be shot. So if there's a 1-and-1 free throw to be shot, the sub comes in before that first shot because there might not be a second shot. If there's 2 free throws to be shot, the sub comes in between the first and the second free throw. Or if the free throw is made, they come after the last free throw is shot. And again, that will become completely second nature to you when you get on the floor a little bit. Once sub for, a player may not re-enter the game until time is properly run off the clock. So they get off the kid comes off the floor, he's been subbed by somebody else, and the coach goes, oh, wait a minute, I didn't want to have him subbed. He's now been subbed out of the game. He can't come back into the game. She can't come back into the game until the clock's been started. When the coach comes out on the floor to check on an injured player, that player must be subbed for unless the team asks for a timeout in order to keep the player in the game. Same thing for a player who's bleeding or has blood on his uniform, her uniform. They must leave the game until the situation is corrected. These days, they just are requiring you to make an effort to clean the jersey, and they can come back in the game. But again, they need to be out for at least a tick of the clock, unless they ask for a timeout to do so. And a player exhibiting concussion signs shall be removed from the game until checked by medical personnel and cleared to play. The key point of that is it's kind of our job to have an awareness whether they're exhibiting some signs of a concussion and have them go out of the game. Obviously, others will be looking as well. But whether they come back into the game and whether they're fit to play in the game is not a judgment that we make at all. It's up to the team and the medical professionals that are at the gym, if they have them, as to whether that kid can go back in the game again. If they then exhibit signs of concussion again, it's our job to get them back out of the game, but we're not the ones making the judgment as to whether they're fit to play going forward. Team 5, rule 3.5, we don't allow team members to wear apparel that we think is dangerous or inappropriate. And that is the other things that are in Rule 3 have a lot to do with what their uniforms are, what their equipment is, what's legal, what's not legal, you know, what color the jersey needs to be, whether the headbands need to match the sleeves, the arm sleeves and the leg sleeves. And I will tell you that unless you're doing a varsity game in your first year, it's really not something you need to worry about too much in terms of things that you need to learn from the rules. You know, you'll get there sooner or later, but you don't need to do it at this point in time. But okay with that? That is Rule 3, and now we'll do Rule 5. Scoring and timing regulations. And again, hitting the highlights. So Rule 5 seconds talks about the extra period. So extra periods, overtime periods are considered an extension of the fourth quarter. It's as if the fourth quarter got another 4 minutes added to it. The teams continue to shoot at the same basket, and the team fouls are not reset at the start of overtime. You do end up getting one more timeout. And if you had timeouts still left before they carry forward, because it's just as if you've added another 4 minutes to the fourth quarter. We've been on the floor. Many of us have been on the floor where we start the fourth quarter and the players line up for the jump ball. And we actually even start the jump ball with the players going in the wrong direction because they've switched again, because they think that's what they should be doing in the overtime period. If you find that to have occurred, everything that happened during that time period counts, but you should then switch the team so that they're going in the quote unquote right direction. I do have a very strong memory of, I think it was my first year, but it might've been my second year where I did exactly that. I was the referee throwing up the ball. We went off in the wrong direction. We caught it after, maybe one play, and the two coaches looked at me and said, can we not switch them back the other way because they'll all get confused? And I said, fine. And we just went off and kind of finished the game. But by rule, you should make them go off in the right direction again. And then Rule 5.8, timeouts and stopping a play, important, because you're going to hear a lot of people calling for timeouts in games. So only the players on the court or the head coach may request a timeout. So not the assistant coach, not the players on the bench. And then timeouts should only be granted when the ball is dead or in player control, at the disposal of the player, kind of the same thing, right? So ball is loose on the floor. Coaches love to scream for timeouts when the ball is loose on the floor. It's our job to make sure that there's player control. The players gather the ball in his hands before we grant the timeout. And if it ends up being tied up by two players, then there's no timeout because there's no player control. It's being held by two different players from two different teams. Everybody good on that?
So a quick question. So let's say a ball, it's loose on the floor. Player control, or does the player still have control over it? Is it team control until the ball either picked up by the defense or rolls out of bounds?
Right. So player control is defined as the player either holding or dribbling the basketball. So there's no player control, but there is team control. So on an interrupted dribble, which is what that is, and the ball's rolling on the floor, the team that was in control remains in control, until the other team gets the ball or something. So there would still be team control, but you can't call a timeout during team control. You can only call a timeout when you have player control. Where it does become important is if there's a foul in that situation, by the team within control, the other team would not shoot free throws. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Anything else? Any other questions?
Do you, is there a time when you talk about mechanics of doing a timeout? Specifically getting back on the court?
Yeah, we definitely do that in mechanics session for sure. In terms of the mechanics of how to put the ball back in play?
No, just watching the games and seeing referees being frustrated trying to get teams back on the court.
Yeah, there's a procedure called resumption of play.
Yeah.
Which we will go over in the training sessions, but briefly, it's you basically put if it's the offensive team that's late getting out onto the floor, you can put the ball on the floor where the ball is supposed to put in play, and you can start your 5-second count at that point in time. Most of the time that causes the team to rush over, grab, get the ball, and throw the ball in play. If it's the defensive team that's late getting out onto the floor, you can just hand the ball to the offensive team that's throwing the ball in, and off they go, and the defense suffers the consequences for doing that. It's a little bit of a game management decision as to when you're doing that, and when it's appropriate. You're clearly, and a little bit has to do with age as well, right? So when you're doing the 4th grade game, you're probably not going to do that all that often, because you're lucky if they're got both shoes on their feet when they get out onto the floor. But in a high school game, yeah, I've done it. I don't know that I've ever actually called the violation. I've definitely put the ball on the floor and started a count, and amazingly people run over and they get the ball into play.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to do it once or twice and they get it.
Right.
Like you'll see refs just taking for 20-30 seconds trying to get people on the court.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And obviously that is the tool to use in order to remedy that situation. Anybody else with a question? We are done for this week, I think. So I'll post again where you can access the quizzes. The quizzes for these 3 rules are due next week. If you haven't had a chance to do the quizzes for the first 3 rules, please do so. They are important. Again, the score isn't so much important as it is that you've kind of made the effort to kind of think about the rules that are out there. And it is going to be part of the requirements that you complete the quizzes in order to kind of move forward and get through this process and get yourself out on the court refereeing.
Hey, sorry to come back to rule 3, but I had a note here on captains. Do captains have any special privilege or?
No.
Yeah, got it.
No, it's very honorary. We have a captain's meeting before the games, and most of the time they're not even listening to you, but on the rare instance that they are listening to you, they don't have any. I've heard referees kind of say, who's the speaking captain, who am I going to be talking to? And to me, I'm like, I'm going to talk to any player that's out on the floor as long as they're talking to me respectfully. And if that person is a captain or the player is not a captain, it really kind of doesn't matter to me.
If we have any questions, in between sessions, what's a good way to kind of ask those? Can we just email someone, or?
You can definitely email me. with, yeah, or you know, if you got mechanics questions or either one, you can email Kelly as well. You know, either one of us will be happy to answer. Mike Lloyd, who was on last week, is a great resource. If you emailed him, he'd be happy to ask you as well. But yeah, feel free to send me something. I'm happy to respond to you. Everybody good? I made up for last week by being 5 minutes early this week, but that's only because I cut out the quiz review. So I'll try to talk fast next week as well.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
This was
Appreciate
worthy
it.
of our time. Good job.
Excellent. Good night. See y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Y'all be blessed.